Welcome back to Kannaway Champions, and this has been a dream of mine for years to have a chance to talk to the people that are the true overcomers in life. And one great thing about the tableau and the playing field, if you will, of sports is it acts out these challenges every day, and we have from it stories, myths, legends that help us evoke those powerful values, the things that we care about most. What are we as a people, as Americans? What are we as champions? And there are few people on this planet that are better at defining the Olympic spirit, defining the champion in all of us than John Naber, four-time gold medalist, two-time world record holder in the backstroke, 5 medals in the Olympics, 1976. By the way, John, I was up there in Montreal. I saw a Korean soccer game. That's all I could afford as a student at Dartmouth College. But the Olympic movement continues, it endures, and right now it's enduring a great challenge. So I'd love to explore with you today as the president of Olympic Alumni, as someone who just barely a week ago helped introduce and welcome people to the new Olympic Museum in Colorado. All these years of you representing the Olympic movement, what is the Olympic spirit to you? What is it that keeps you getting up in the morning knowing that you represent that spirit and hopefully help others tap into it?
Well, Nick, allow me to make a couple of quick corrections. I am not the president of the alumni. I am the former president, or past president of the Olympic Alumni. And the museum is the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum. We are actually binding those two movements together. I fell in love with the Olympic movement when I was 10 years old. My family took us on a Mediterranean cruise, and the ship stopped near Olympia, Greece. We went on a guided tour, and the tour guide, pardon me?
I've been there.
Oh yeah, gorgeous, historical, significantly historical place.
Absolutely.
And the tour guide explained that as the athletes marched through the tunnel into the opening ceremonies in the ancient Olympic Games, they had statues alongside that were carved in the likeness of any athlete who'd ever been caught cheating. It was literally a hall of shame. And I said, wow, this is a movement that treasures sportsmanship. It wasn't a hall of winners. It wasn't a list of champions, right, but it was designed to encourage every athlete to follow the rules. So I thought to myself, wow, a movement that's more about sportsmanship and fair play than it is about victory and triumph. I said to my mom, someday I want to be an Olympian. She said, really? What sport? I had no idea. I'd not begun my swimming career. I didn't begin it for another 3 years, but I'd always had a love of the Olympic movement. And you asked me what makes the movement special?
Yes.
In my opinion, it's the Olympic ideals. The IOC refers to it as Olympism, and it's the concept of sportsmanship, fair play, good effort, personal improvement. The Olympic motto, Citius Altius Fortius, means swifter, higher, stronger, not swiftest, highest, strongest. It's not about who wins. It's about everybody getting a little bit better in the act of competition. And so the purpose of the movement is to encourage the international education, experience, and goodwill through a mutual discovery of who's the best at some particular skill.
Right.
And I'll tell the world, I'll tell you, that the ability to swim quickly while on your back has limited value in society at large.
As does the ability to kick a football through uprights.
But on that day, everybody's watching because we're out to discover who's really good at this particular skill. And so on that day, I got to be the best in the world, but everybody in the pool was able to do a personal best time. Everybody could have walked out of there saying, that's all I could do. I did the best job I could. And in fact, the moment you get to the athletes' village in the cafeteria, all of that metal stuff goes away, and you're sitting across an athlete who's got a cauliflowered ear from years of wrestling, or a little gymnast, or a huge basketball player, and you're all talking about, you know, personal anecdotes and human experience. That's what makes the Olympic movement great. And in my opinion, that's why I think it will survive this current COVID crisis.
So go with me on this. One of the things I picked up you from the beginning, and I believe if you believe in the law of attraction, the the law of intention, is the more that we align our deepest core values, what our purpose is, with our soul and our unique gifts. One of them might be kicking, one might be being the greatest backstroker in the world who has other skills as well. But the more that we connect to those gifts, which if we're lucky are more than one, the more we evoke, if you will, a vibration, some call it. It's a soulful energy. And I picked up from you from day one, you have that. And you may not have heard this before, but my next door neighbor, growing up from the age of 6, was another interesting human being who was an athlete who happened to have just been approved as Supreme Court Justice to John F. Kennedy, and that was Justice Byron White. And you may not have heard this, but I rarely feel this, but I feel the same energy from you that I felt from him, which is this combination of a great, incredible competitive spirit with a discipline to do the work to integrate those values into your own life, and also have a theater and a discipline of the mind, which is one reason why you're so important, John, because right now we as a country and we as a world are looking at what are the ethics, what are the rules, to use your word, that avoid us from committing those acts which are shameful, as you alluded to in Olympia, and help us conduct ourselves as people. Because what I'm seeing right now, without going into what's exactly happening right now in too much detail, is a lack of congruence with who I am and what I say is important with what I do. So I'd love your comment on your transition, because I want to go back to the Olympics after this, but your transition after your Montreal Olympics, where suddenly, like Amy Van Dyken, who we had on last week, who's also very articulate, dealing with being a champion and then employing that in your own life to the point where now maybe you're the former, but people still think of you as one of the true leaders of the Olympic and Paralympic movements.
Wow, and that's a pretty broad question. Let me begin by reminding your viewers of that very popular book, The Purpose-Driven Life.
Yes.
I think or there was another one, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People.
Yes.
It talks about begin with the end in mind, have a destination rather than just saunter. There's a lot of people who say life is about the journey, not the destination. And that is true only if you have a destination in mind, because a journey is going in a direction, whereas just sort of wandering gets you nowhere. So it's not about getting to the destination, but it is about having a destination, having a purpose in your life. And a lot of Olympic athletes, and there was a film on HBO recently called The Weight of Gold. Michael Phelps produced this story about what happens to an athlete after they stop being an athlete. And there's this loss of purpose, loss of destination, and loss of clarity. Yes. I likened it to being a water skier who finishes the course and lets go of the rope. And what happens, right? And so in 1976, after the Montreal Games, I still had one more year of college eligibility. So my focus was on completing my 4 years at SC in a proudful manner. But then I said, I can no longer, my room and board scholarship expired. I had to get a job because the Olympics were completely amateur in those days. I couldn't be a paid athlete. I couldn't get paid for exhibits or swim clinics. There was no prize money. And so I literally realized I had to find another way to make a living. And I said, how can I use this wonderful experience, the 8 years that led to my being a champion, how can I use that to benefit society at large? Teaching everybody how to swim is an option. Being a swim coach or instructor, that's an option. But I chose to use my personal experience, and I need to backtrack a little bit. I was not a gifted athlete. I had a lot of false starts in sports in general, and I played piano for a year. I played guitar for a year. I was a Boy Scout for a year. Nothing really hooked until I found swimming. But the process of swimming taught me life lessons, and I thought that those life lessons would be beneficial in the corporate arena. So I became a motivational speaker, teaching others how to think and act like an Olympic champion. And I came up with 8 steps that help with analogies and metaphors that help people view themselves selling life insurance or building computers or becoming a plumber or a teacher or a doctor. And the process that Olympians use to be successful can apply in life at large. And so that's what I did. I became a life coach before the term existed. I was coaching audiences how to think and act like Olympic champions. And I didn't just use my experience, because post-Olympic career, I was a broadcaster. I was able to interview Carl Lewis and Mary Lou Retton and Greg Louganis, and I learned their experiences. And so I shared a variety of Olympic athletic experiences that help people be successful in life.
John, before we get into those 8 principles, and you don't have to go into all 8, but I'd love to have at least the ones that jump to your mind right now. But before we do that, I think it's always important to share the humanity of a defeat, of a missed field goal, of a lost race, of a mistake. Because I was lucky enough to be mentored in college by Dr. John Rassius, who was arguably the world's foremost language teacher. He developed the Rassius Rapid Learning Method for John F. Kennedy, which has taught all 300,000 members of the Peace Corps, which to me has a certain cousin in the Olympic movement, and the idea of going to other countries and developing a sense of love and contribution. So tell us, when you think about the mistakes, Dr. Rassius' method was all about allowing the speaker trying to learn a language. In this case, let's think of language in a bigger way, the language of life, by making the most mistakes, by speaking more in the very first class than they would normally in an entire semester, so that they had so many references to how not to do it that they were much more likely to get to where they needed to get to that destination of being comfortable, not being afraid to make mistakes. So tell us the mistake that comes to mind, whether you were 5 years old or 25 years old or 35. I prefer it to be somewhere connected with your Olympic experience. By the way, you have not mentioned that you're 6'6" and you had a body that absolutely, you may not have thought of yourself as Michael Jordan as an athlete, but you did have a body that was conducive to generating a lot of power, and obviously you proved that. So tell us, what is the mistake that taught you the most?
Well, I had a whole bundle of clumsy mistakes. I dove off a diving board and missed the water, and it broke my collarbone and put a dimple in my cheek, and I was out for the season. This was the junior year in high school, Olympic year, 1972. And I think the mistake was I was a little bit too cocky, a little bit too arrogant, and I didn't think of the consequences. The story was I was bouncing on the board like a trampoline as the underclassmen, the freshmen, were putting the lane ropes into the pool. And as they'd synced one in and they tightened it up to the tension of a cheese cutter guitar string, the coach walks in and yells, "Naber, get off the board." And in front of me was a lane line, so I couldn't dive straight, so I aimed a little to the side. On a single bounce, I would have landed in lane 1. But because I bounced on a diving board like a trampoline, I loaded it full of power, and it literally catapulted me in the air. And I bounced off the deck, the side of the pool, and that was what taught me the consequence that, you know, hey, think ahead, and when you bounce 7 times, you're going to have a better or different result than what you anticipate. That's the easiest one to point to. I think I have a lot of regrets. There were things I wish I had done that I didn't do. I had some false starts in a race in 1973.
Okay.
I had developed a backstroke turn that did not require me to lean into the wall, but the rules required that I at least touch the wall. And I'd mastered this spin turn. Other people were bending over backwards, but I would fold up like a jackknife and rotate on my rear end and spin around. I'd mastered this technique so that I didn't need to touch the wall. And I came in so fast, I executed the turn and did not touch the wall and was disqualified even though I won the race. I got to the finish line before everybody else, but because I didn't follow the rule, the penalty was disqualification. And that cost me 2 world championship medals, because that was the world championship selection trials. And had I won the race, I would have been on the medley relay, which did win a gold medal in the 1973 world championships. And I would have competed in the 100-meter backstroke, where I probably would have won another medal, all because of one little mistake. But The official told my coach, I wasn't sure, you better ask him, did he touch the wall? And here is the big one. I had to fess up. I had to say, you know, I don't think I touched the wall. I deserve to be disqualified. And that decision is one of which I am more proud than any other decision I made in the career, because I told the truth. I paid the price, but I'm not embarrassed. I don't regret the decision. I'm not afraid that somebody will reveal that I was a cheater. You know, all of those things were capsulized in that one little moment.
And the integrity that underscored for the rest of your life. That's a beautiful example. And, you know, just being able to admit that you made big mistakes. It's funny how freeing that can be. Tell us about Montreal. We went through the 4 gold medals that Amy Van Dyken had in the Atlanta Olympics. And she starts off, because it was the very first event of the Olympics, where she doesn't medal. She gets 4th place, and she feels like she's let down the country, and realized this is a whole different ball game. And she'd done a lot of the work mentally, physically, a tremendous amount of work, which allowed her to not let that sabotage her confidence. And she goes on to have 4 gold medals. You had 5 medals. Tell us about the one that was not a gold.
Okay, I qualified to swim in the Olympics in the 100 back, 200 back, medley relay, freestyle relay, and also in the 200-meter freestyle. I qualified in that event, not the favorite, not the record holder, and as a matter of fact, I qualified into the finals as the final qualifier. I was the 8th swimmer in the preliminaries, and the final of the 200 freestyle occurred 45 minutes after I just won the gold medal in the 100 backstroke. So I was tired. I was an outside lane. It wasn't my stroke, and not much was expected of me.
Right.
And I led the race for 199 yards or 199 meters of the 200-meter race. And my finishing time was better than the world record prior to the Olympics, but I came in 2nd. Think about it. Should I be disappointed? No, I was delighted. I was absolutely thrilled. The marketplace would say, oh, he lost.
Right.
But remember, the Olympic motto is swifter, higher, stronger. I swam so much better than anybody ever expected me to do that I felt it was a win. So I have no regrets, and I didn't feel I had to rebound. I felt great. And the guy who did beat me was Bruce Furness, a USC teammate of mine at USC. And we celebrated together. And then we went out to dinner and we hugged each other and congratulated each other's family members. So I have no ill will, and there's no shame in a silver medal at all.
You know, the American commitment to winning is an interesting one, because from the beginning you've talked about that in Greece, the idea is to be better, one's best self. And I think of the analogy that my uncle, my middle name is Gerald, my uncle Gerald was all India rugby. He became the assistant. My mother was British and her father was a British diplomat. And Gerald became the assistant to the Viceroy of India, Air Marshal Lord Tedder, who then became number 2, the silver medalist, if you will, in the war in Europe under Eisenhower. But no one knows. No one knows. No one writes about. No one knows about Air Marshal Lord Tedder, because it's always about the person that's first. And so we lose so much when we don't realize that our personal journey, if it transcends the best that we've ever done, has just as much or more integrity than winning when we haven't done our best.
I would challenge your viewers to think, can I name an Olympic athlete whose best performance was a silver medal? America idolizes victory over all else. It wasn't always that way. Louis Zamperini, the Olympic runner who was famous, his life was portrayed in the movie Unbroken and the book Unbroken. He was a runner who finished 7th in the Olympics. And he was very proud of that performance. And when he came home, people didn't say, did you win? They said, what place did you win? And he could proudly say, I won 7th place. I beat people behind me. In Europe, any medal of any color is considered a victory. It's only in America that we praise the gold over anything else. And that's a shame, because frankly, everybody who swam that race worked as hard as I did. They trained as many hours, in many cases, years more than I did. The price we pay isn't the only outcome, but it is important to pay a price. I know a lot of people with good attitude and good body physique and great mental skills who just don't put in the work, and they'll never be successful.
We had, of course, Amy Van Dyken during this Olympic Champions Month, and before that we had Daryl Clack, who had a serious injury and might not have made it in the NFL, but in the end had a pretty darn good career with the Dallas Cowboys. But all of them talk about that funny thing called hard work, that funny thing about enjoying and loving the process of preparation. Let's get back to 1976 in the Olympics, because that led to you being selected the Sullivan Award winner, which is the foremost amateur athlete, which today pretty much would be the foremost athlete in America. What do you remember about the training, the preparation that gave you the peace and the confidence to win 4 gold medals at the Olympics?
Again, the training I did was pretty much the same as the training of everybody else in my swimming pool. Our coach gave us all the same workout, and we pretty much all worked out together. And when I was getting tired, there's Bruce Furness in the lane next to me saying, "Come on, John, let's race one more time." And the rising tide lifted all boats. So I was very fortunate to be a part of a team where everybody was devoted to excellence, and that raised the temperature of the competitiveness during workouts, which produced the outcomes that worked out so well for me. I remember drinking out of a soda bottle, reading 4 words on the side of the glass bottle that taught me the most important lesson. That basically said, if you're not willing to pay the price, you're not entitled to enjoy the flavor. If we're not willing to invest in our dreams, we don't deserve to see the dreams come true. Nick, you might be old enough to remember the 4 words on the side of the bottle. No deposit, no return. Now, today we have recyclable materials and we don't see that on the bottle, but it taught me a very important lesson. In 1992, the year of the Barcelona Olympic Games, the most favored T-shirt worn by Olympic hopefuls said, "No pain, no Spain." Right? It's the concept of, hey, I know what I want, but unlike eating out at a restaurant, they don't hand you the bill after dessert has been served. You got to pay the price before dessert is served. And that means doing the work. And that's the secret that most Olympians get. It's the concept of delayed gratification. I will forego the party lifestyle now in order to enjoy success later. Olympians are taught if you live 5 years as a pauper, you'll get to retire as a king. Work as a peasant and live as a king.
Let me ask you this, because on the subject of pain, one of the advantages that I want our listeners who are looking at how they work through pain and discomfort and adversity, one of the advantages that sports helps, I think, teach us. And my twin sister, when I taught her and took her through weightlifting for the first time, I could see this on her face. The first few times she weightlifted, she started to cry about the 8th or 9th rep, because she hadn't learned to differentiate, distinguish between emotional pain and physical pain. One of the, I think, outcomes of being an Olympic champion, of being an athlete that's pushed themselves through that process day in, day out, not just one time, is perhaps a little better understanding of being able to differentiate between temporary pain and lasting pain. Tell us about that. Instead of going through all 4 gold medals, tell us the 1 gold medal that jumps out. I'm guessing it's one of the world records, but for you, when you think of all the pain that you worked through to get to that place and then to do something and have a world record that lasted for a number of years, tell us about that and what that's helped you carry yourself through when we overcome right now, when we transcend this ridiculous, crazy, insane environment with COVID and everything else.
I think anybody who won multiple medals will tell you the first one is special. It's like the first girl you ever kissed. To be able to receive a medallion and hear your national anthem played and watch your parents clutching their throat in pride, those are memories that will last a lifetime. And certainly that makes it special. And at the moment I was receiving the medal, I had to contemplate, I had to think back on all of the various individuals who contributed to that memory. My mom had to drive me to work out at 5:30 in the morning before I had my driver's license, right? She had to wake up. My dad had to go to swim meets on weekends, his only time off from the job, to run a stopwatch, as every other swim team parent was required to do, so that we could get the results and the official statistics about which we could grow. Our coaches had to study, and they were the first persons on the pool deck and the last ones to leave. And I had 5 different coaches throughout my life that were teaching me different things. So it was an individual event. Swimming is perceived as an individual event, but I was not a champion by myself. I owe an awful lot to a large number of people who helped me get there. And that was what I was thinking about during the 100 backstroke. I was also saying to myself, don't get all wrapped up in the emotions, because I got to swim again in 45 minutes. Yeah. So I was saying, down, boy, relax, calm down. Don't let it impact you. And that was tamped it down a little bit.
Let's talk about, I think, one of the key distinguishing characteristics of you, which is being aware that you represent more than just yourself. Being aware that the team, whether it's Furness next to you in the pool, or whether it's the mentors, the parents, the coaches that helped you stay with it when you didn't want to, or helped you see it in a different way that allowed you to transcend those temporary roadblocks. Surrounding yourself with people that bring out your best. Give us your perspective and advice for our listeners and watchers on how one chooses and is effective and successful in choosing the right people to surround themselves with, so they bring out their best in each direction, so they constantly reaffirm that destination we talked about from the beginning.
Well, remember I told you about the tour guide in Olympia, Greece, who talked about the statues that were carved in the likeness of the cheaters. What I didn't tell you is the cost of that statue was sent to the athlete's hometown. The concept was, if you cheat, it reflects poorly on your city, and they will pay a consequence. And the opposite is also true. If you represent yourself well, it reflects well on your city, your family, your school, your country. And so I took the reverse of a lesson, realizing that my behavior reflects not only on me, but on all of the people that I am associated with. I will also tell you that I have a deep, abiding Christian faith, and that helped me, because knowing that God loved me unconditionally, the result didn't matter. I wasn't going to lose his love if I finished 3rd or 5th. But because he loved me unconditionally, it really made me want to give my best. It made me want to do my best. And so I realized that by my behavior, good or bad, wanted or not, I was going to be a role model. And I think that affected the way I behaved, both at the Olympics and since, and maybe even a little bit before. I do have regrets. There were things that I did that I'm not proud of, but on the whole, I think that understanding my role in society as a role model, as Charles Barkley said, you're a role model, whether you want to be or not. You may not want to be, but you are a role model. I think that that's an important thing for us to learn. And the people we surround ourselves with, on average, somebody once said, you become, on average, the average of the best 5 people in your life.
Right.
So if you surround yourself with losers, you really can't get past that. But if you surround yourself with winners, they will, the average temperature of that bathtub water gets warmer and warmer, and pretty soon you're finding yourself circling with the eagles, not hanging around with the turkeys.
Go with me on this. So since you evoked this Greek cultural paradigm of shame versus true integrity, I've always found it interesting, and you've also talked about as a Christian, that the ancient Greek definition or translation of the word sin really meant more to fall short of the mark. In other words, the paradigm was that we must continue to aim higher, to aim to get closer. But if we fall short of the mark, it doesn't mean we're going immediately to hell. And that feeds into, I think, this healthier notion of mistakes and trying to do the best we can and always learning. If you want, you could say honoring your creator by saying, I didn't do my best. I have to do better because I believe you've given me a purpose and skills and talents that are unique. And that's what you want me to do. You want me to have you and your purpose in me be found through trying over and over and over because of that devotion. What do you think about that? And because that seems to tap into the Greek paradigm of improvement, of non-judgment, but at the same time of ethics and pushing yourself to the highest level.
I believe that figure skaters and gymnasts all agree that if you're not falling in practice, you're not growing. You're not trying things you haven't done. Your reach should exceed your grasp. You should attempt things that you don't know you can do, because you might discover you can do more than you think you can. And the concept of swifter, higher, stronger says that. The goal in the Olympics is not to coast to an easy victory, but rather to push ourselves beyond what we know we're capable of doing. And that's to do it ethically. Okay, I see that finger up there. I mean, to do it ethically, of course.
Absolutely. Well, no, to me, it's to discover something in you you never thought you had. I was cut by and rejected by, I don't know if you know this, 11 times. And I am so proud of those rejections, because I noticed how I shifted my focus from it's going to be the end of my dream the very first time and the second time to, wait a minute, a couple days later, they don't know what's inside me. The uniqueness of the kicker, obviously, is it's just 1.3 seconds, you know? I have to keep putting myself out there until I can handle it. And so I actually ended up giving up a job with the Senate Commerce Committee working on aviation safety and aviation deregulation for Senator Bob Packwood of Oregon to try my 12th time. And then I played 18 years. And I continued to do things in the off season because I knew that helped keep me grounded. Let's go back to the 8 values, the 8 characteristics of an Olympic champion. Give us 2 or 3 of those you think that are particularly important and relevant today, John Naber.
Most people say begin with a goal. I turn the clock back a little bit and I say begin with a feeling. What is it you want to feel like? What is the emotional outcome you seek? And then number 2 is, how's your attitude? And once your attitude is in sync with your feeling, then you can determine what goal will help me reach that feeling. So anyway, those are the first 3 that are often overlooked. Most motivational speakers say begin with a goal. I say that's number 3. Let me jump ahead. Number 5 is hard work, no deposit, no return. Number 6 is willpower. Number 6 is willpower, the ability to overcome obstacles. And I want to take a moment talking about that, Nick, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
If you think about great Olympic stories, if you were to name 5, you'd probably name the Miracle on Ice. You might name Bruce Jenner. You might name Shaun White or Apollo Ono. But the stories that NBC will tell are Kerry Strug overcoming twisted ankle, Greg Louganis hitting his head on a diving board. Okay, the stories of overcoming adversity, those are the ones that have resonance for years to come. And what's interesting is that people think that, wow, they overcame adversity, that makes them special. I would suggest that every Olympian overcomes adversity. They don't often do it at the Olympics, and it's rare that a big blunder occurs at the Olympic Games when the cameras are running. But all Olympians overcome adversity. In 1976, I was one of the champions along with the hurdler, Edwin Moses.
Yes.
You talk about overcoming adversity. Hurdlers have to overcome adversity every 8 steps, right? And he had a consecutive victory of 112 unbeaten races. He was unbeaten for like 8 years.
Yeah.
And I asked him in the middle of his string, what makes you so good? And he said, most hurdlers look at the hurdles and try to get over them. I have worked hard enough in advance that I know I can clear the hurdles. I don't look at the hurdles, I look at the finish line. And I keep my stride long and strong, knowing that I can overcome the hurdles. Most Olympians encounter an adversity, like a diving board crash or a twisted ankle. Most people encounter an adversity and they say, uh-oh, I wonder if I can overcome this. Olympians encounter an adversity and they go, uh-oh, I wonder how I can overcome this. I wonder if, I wonder how. If you wonder if, you're not sure you can do it. But Olympians' desire is so strong that they don't begin with, I wonder if I can win. they say, I wonder how I can do this. They look at it like a riddle or a puzzle. There's got to be an answer somewhere. And as a result, they find a way to overcome their adversity, and they end up enjoying great success. They don't all win gold medals, but they enjoy great success. I think Nancy Kerrigan winning a silver medal after being hit in the leg by a lead pipe is a remarkable story of great success. The world wished she'd won gold. She wished she'd won gold, but it doesn't matter. She overcame the adversity. She got back on the ice. She found a way to be successful. Wilma Rudolph, 3 gold medals after having polio in her youth, like Forrest Gump, right? Had to walk with braces on her feet, eventually walking fast enough to be the fastest woman in the world.
You and I met a couple years ago, maybe it was last year as well, at the Angel City Games, which is a Paralympic cousin led by Clayton Freck and his incredible son, Ezra Freck, and his mother and Clayton's wife, Bahar, just amazing human beings. And the Angel City Games, to me, I wish everyone could be part of that and witness people with no legs, like the 10-year-old girl I met 2 years ago who had no legs. Now, she had great prosthetics, and her attitude, we talked about attitude, her attitude was cocky and confident, and I knew she'd do well. But my point and my experience working and witnessing all these athletes at the Angel City Games is every one of them, from the point that they had their adversity, missing a limb, being paralyzed, being blind, some of it from birth, sometimes in an accident, the wheelchair athletes, they've always been overcomers. Every day they have to overcome, every single day. So they don't say if, they always say, how am I going to overcome this? And so isn't that a fantastic way to condition ourselves every day? It's not going to be what happens to us. It's the creative and spiritual strength to draw from, which is a fun adventure in itself. And you've used the word discover, to discover the new way, the new pathway over the hurdles to the finish line.
Yeah, the Angel City Games are a highlight for adaptive sports in Los Angeles. But not every person in a wheelchair competes in sport. But those that come to the Angel City Games have put themselves in the arena the way that Teddy Roosevelt speaks about, putting your reputation on the line. They're willing to embarrass themselves perhaps, but also possibly enjoy great success. And they make their family members proud, and they create relationships that last beyond competition. They have healthier bodies as a result. Yes. They do amazing things. And it's an absolute delight to see that. And that's why the Paralympic movement and the Olympic movement are so in tune, in sync with each other, yes. Because both sets in ideals are building better people. They're building a better society. They're not just discovering who can throw a javelin.
The Teddy Roosevelt quote I love, the credit is not for the critic. It's not the critic who counts. The credit belongs to the man or woman in the arena whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly and comes short again and again and again. And I'm not getting all of it, but in the end knows the triumph of high achievement and is never lost with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Good stuff. So, John, tell us about how we can learn more about you. And for those that would like to follow John, it's johnnaber.com is your website. But how can people get you? Right now it might be on Zoom, but in the future, hire you as a public speaker. And what other, is there one great purpose besides the Olympic movement you'd like to share?
Okay, well, yeah, johnnaber.com is my website. John@johnnaber.com is my email address. You got to spell it Naber. E-R. I'm active in a couple of Olympic-related charities, Olympians for Olympians Relief Fund, which gives grants to Olympians and Paralympians who've fallen on hard times through no fault of their own, through accident, illness, or injury, or natural disaster. I'm chairman of Coro Ibos Foundation, which gives training grants to Olympic hopefuls who live in Southern California, from Fresno to Mexico. I'm the chairman of Ready, Set, Gold, which puts Olympic athletes and Paralympic athletes in LA Unified School District schools talking to kids about Olympism. So it gets the message out there. I've written a couple of books, and my third one is due out in September. My first book is Awaken the Olympian Within, which is a collection of anecdotes by 28 different Olympians that tell the story, what did sport teach you that is applicable in life? My second book might be available on eBay. It's called Eureka, How Innovation Changes the Olympics and Everything Else.
Love it.
That's probably not on Amazon. My third book coming out is the Olympic Trivia Challenge, because as you can tell, Nick, I love Olympic stories. And I find that they're wonderful for prompting thinking. And I've collected a bunch of Olympic stories that it's being published by the Olympic and Paralympic Museum, which just opened last week in Colorado Springs. $83 million, 60,000 square feet, 11 exhibit halls, including Paralympic, winter, summer, all the torches, all the Olympic medals you can imagine. Interactive, where you pick up a bow and arrow, you imagine going down the bobsled course. There's things to do, things to see, lots to learn. There's a tribute to the 1980 Moscow boycott team, those athletes that didn't get to go.
Yes.
There's all sorts of reasons to go to this museum, and it's now open. You should make a reservation in advance because they do enforce social distancing. And so that's important. So anyway, there's lots of things there's lots of ways to learn about the Olympics. And if I can be of service, I'm happy to do it. And a lot of speakers bureaus around the country know how to reach me professionally, but people can call or write or send an email or befriend me on Facebook or Twitter or any of those. So you can find me if you want. I'll be available.
Well, John, one of the greatest compliments I like to give is someone is the same person you met the first time and the same person every time. And you're that way. And really, I love you as a human being. You're an amazing person. It's always an honor to tap into the greatness of the spirit of each person. And so this show is not about CBD. This is about no endorsement of CBD. It's the endorsement of the spirit of greatness and the champions in each of us. And we are so honored because all of us, especially right now, have to overcome fear, have to overcome doubt. Could you leave us with your comment about how you deal with fear and doubt and how you would suggest other people deal with their own fears and doubts?
I was not born knowing how to swim or how to ride a bicycle. And if people say, you know what, I just can't do it, you're right. You can't do it now. But that doesn't mean you can't do it at some point in the future. And most negative evidence is, frankly, temporary negative evidence. And the good Olympians learn what's temporary, and I ignore that. I don't let that pull me down. If it's permanent, I will never be a good jockey on the winning horse at the Kentucky Derby. I'm just too darn big. So that dream, if I had it, would
That would
be
be a great image, though. Seriously. Now, before the Kentucky Derby, I'd like to have a bunch of guys 6'6" to 7 feet on horses in a race. Wouldn't that be great? And have that right before the Kentucky Derby.
Imagine the horse going, are you kidding me? Yeah, no way. But anyway, my point is that good Olympians learn how to ignore temporary evidence and focus on that which they can control, not on things that they cannot control. During COVID, it's a temporary condition. I can't say it's permanent. I do believe that the world is permanently changed, but COVID is not a permanent condition. And so athletes need to focus on that which they can control and make those decisions accordingly. All of life, all of wise choices is a balancing of risk and reward. There is no choice of having no risk in your life. I saw a poster once that said a ship in a harbor is a safe ship indeed, but that's not what ships were built for. Ships were built to carry cargo across oceans so that, all those things could take place. Every time we drive on a freeway, we are accepting a level of risk. And our world needs to be taught, how do we determine the correct amount of risk for us? I'm not telling you, you can't wear a mask. I wear a mask because I don't want to risk my daughter who has asthma getting some bug from me.
Right.
But that doesn't guarantee she won't get the bug. She might get the bug somewhere else. There's all sorts of risk involved, and we should learn how to make those choices for ourselves, our own values. I gave up parties because I needed or I wanted to swim fast. I have friends who valued parties more than swimming fast. So they went to the party and they got their reward. They accepted, they received their prize according to their risk-reward balance. I think we all need to decide for ourselves what is it that we value and what price are we willing to pay. And believe it or not, there are those that want what you want but are not willing to pay the price, and you will succeed ahead of them. You'll be tired, you'll feel pain in the middle of a race, but don't you think your opponent is equally in pain? And wouldn't you like to have the training to endure the pain just a little bit longer? That's how we make our success, by enduring a little bit more than the other guy, and we'll get to the finish line first.
Well, John Naber, we are so honored to have had you on the show. I hope we can have you on again sometime, and bless you for the example you are of humanity, you know, of flawed imperfection that is a higher level of perfection, as the Greeks would say. God bless you. Thank you again. Thanks everybody for watching Kannaway Champions. We're so lucky during Olympic Champion Month to tap into this wisdom. We all need it right now. Just remember this, it's not the spotlight on you, it's the brightness of the light within. God bless you and thank you.